Let's go to exam topics. Oh, that was the practice questions. Let's take the VPN, for example. Review now. So let's say next. So the first one is, which three modes are used by IINS to secure communications? Now this is one very specific question. At this point, either you know the modes or you don't know them pretty much. So in here you have no, let's say, no option to move around in case you don't know the answer, because it's very specific. It's asking what are the modes of the negotiation process. It's that simple. So next I'm going to put the modes, which is main mode or aggressive mode for phase 1, and then it is going to be quick mode for phase 2. Now of course also here I could complain from my point of view that the question is not appropriate, because this is an IIV1 question, because IIV2 works differently, and the question is which three modes are used by IINS to secure communications. But because I don't see any of the IIV2 let's say options in the answers, I can safely assume this is an IIV1 question. So again, the question is not 100% technically correct, but because IINS has two versions, but based on the answers I'm able to identify about which IINS version they're speaking about. And I'm going to make a short comment in here. Now of course you would expect that the questions should be, let's say, not more specific, but technically at least correct. If the wording can be ambiguous, at least technically speaking, they should be correct. Unfortunately, this doesn't happen because how the how this works. Because in the end, it's a money business, right? I mean, this is also one of the reasons why back in the days most of the books were very good, solid, technically speaking books, and nowadays not that much anymore. Because if you want to write a CISCO Press book, they're gonna pay you like 10, maybe 20,000 in there for the book to write it inside out, and that's gonna take you 6 or maybe 9 months of work to make such a book. So who can basically afford? I mean, speaking about the Western countries, who can afford to like work 9 months and get paid 10-20K in there? It's not worth it. So because of that reason, they end up with people that write questions for the exam, or with people that develop as exam content, or with people that develop write books for the certification in there, which are not that knowledgeable. So this could be, from my point of view, that is the case, because I also done some questions, I have also reviewed some questions, and that was the problem. The specific person that was doing the questions was not basically knowledgeable, and from that person point of view, maybe he was not even aware that IIV2 even exists. So that's why the question was by IINS to secure communications. Okay, let's say next. Then which type of VPN technology is likely to be used in a site-to-site VPN? This is a not very specific question. As long as you understand what is the site-to-site VPN and what is the remote access VPN and why are those different, what do they achieve, what is the scope of them, you should be able to answer the question even if you don't know the answer. So in a site-to-site VPN, first of all, there is no such thing as a TLS VPN. We have SSL VPN, which makes use of SSL or TLS, but there's no such thing as a TLS VPN, because we're speaking about types of site-to-site VPN technologies. And then, because site-to-site VPN cannot be SSL, because it doesn't make sense, Cisco doesn't have SSL VPN site-to-site. We're going to speak about it when we get there. I know some vendors offer the option to do site-to-site VPNs using SSL. From my point of view, just a marketing strategy, because it doesn't make sense. It's not actually required. But either way, there are some, of course, some customers who want that for the same reason that you would implement remote access SSL VPN and not remote access IPsec VPN. Because based on where you connect from, it may happen that the protocols required to negotiate an IPsec VPN tunnel are not allowed are not functioning from that specific point of connection in the internet. So because of that, I just know that basically a site-to-site VPN doesn't use SSL, which means no SSL VPN, and there's no such thing as HTTPS VPN, which means this leaves us with only IPsec as the answer. Which of the following is never part of an IINS phase 2 process? Again, because we speak about phase 2, this actually means about IINS v1 phase 2. Either way. So it's a question about the phase 2 process of IINS v1, and the question is which of the following is never a part of phase 2? So in here it means you have to know what is the scope of phase 2, because if you understand the scope of phase 2 as you're going to do it within class as well, you understand what's being negotiated in phase 2, which means you're going to be able to answer the question properly. So in phase 2, the scope, so which of the following is never part of? Now main mode is a method, which is anyways for phase 1, so it's two reasons why this cannot be the answer. Because first of all, it's a method, it's not part of something, it's a method by itself, and it has to do with phase 1. Then the transform set to use, it is a phase 2 negotiation. This one is a phase 2 in here. Running PFS is a phase 2. And specifying a hash MAC is a phase 2 as well. So pretty much I'm left with, it means that because both of them are in phase 2, it means there we go, the answer is main mode. So in phase 2, I may use PFS, I have to use transform sets, I have to define hash methods, so main mode is the answer, and let's say submit. There you go, this time we got it all right. Let's try, what else? Secure routing and switching, for example. It is 3 questions likewise. Let's say next. So the question is, which spanning tree protection feature disables ports when a violation occurs? So in here, it means that, again, you have to know what are the available STP protection features and how do they work in order to know which one disables the port when a violation occurs. And that is BPDU guard. For example, there's no such thing as STP source guard. This is an invalid answer. The other 3 ones are STP protection feature, but only BPDU guard disables the port. Which option mitigates VLAN hopping and double tagging and VLAN hopping attacks? So this it's again a very specific question, which you have to know what VLAN hopping means and how does double tagging help in VLAN hopping attacks. So basically the question is, how do you mitigate VLAN hopping or double tagging, which is basically still VLAN hopping attacks? So you have to first know what VLAN hopping is, how does it work, how is it basically done. So only at that point you're going to be able to understand what are the solutions to defend against those kind of attacks. But still, let's see if even without knowing the answers, you can actually eliminate ones which are 100% not correct. So the first one says, ensure that the native VLAN of the trunk ports is different from the native VLAN of the user ports. And this is a correct answer. Correct. Let's see the other ones. The second one, ensure that the native VLAN of the trunk ports is the same as the native VLAN of the user ports. So this is the opposite of option A, and this is actually the implementation, the configuration that allows VLAN hopping to happen. So this is not correct. Option C, setting the trunk port to off. Not really. This can help. This can help mitigating attacks, but it's not enough. And likewise, enabling auto trunking negotiations, which means DTP. DTP actually allows for other kind of attacks. So this is actually not related to my question. So I would say that the option which mitigates VLAN hopping and double tagging is making sure that the native VLAN of the trunks is different from the native VLAN of user ports. So basically option B was not correct because I just knew option A was correct and B is the opposite of A. C was not correct because it's not enough to defend against VLAN hopping. And D was not correct because DTP is not directly connected with VLAN hopping. I mean, it is, but basically DTP is the enabling DTP is going to basically actually allow, so this allows VLAN hopping to happen. The question is about mitigation. So there you go. Let's pick answer of A. Next. How does port security work? So this is clearly a very specific question. You gotta know what port security does and then be able to provide the answers. But let's see if not knowing how port security works, but knowing other technologies, you may actually exclude all of the answers and end up with a proper one. So it says, how does port security work? By error disabling an access port when a BPDU is received. This is BPDU guard, not port security. Let's say option number A, by limiting and identifying the MAC addresses of the systems that are allowed to access the port. This is a correct answer. Now, this is the first time I'm going to speak about the following option. When you read the question and you read the first answer and it is correct, you don't choose that answer and move on. Because with any questions, you may have multiple correct answers. So a question can have multiple correct answers and you have to choose the best one. Basically, which one is it is more connected to the question itself. So in case you have multiple correct answers, read the question again and see exactly what is the question looking for. And likewise, in the answers, you may have correct statements. Like the question may be about how to authenticate routing protocols, and one of the answers could be something like routing protocols are authenticated because of security reasons. So that's a correct statement, but has nothing to do with the question. So that's why that's not an option. So when you read the answers, see which ones are actually connected to the question. So exclude just the correct statements, which are just correct statements. And then from the remaining ones, if you have multiple correct answers, see which one better fits and closer fits with the question. So option B, by limiting and identifying the IP addresses of the systems that are allowed to access a port. So as long as you know that port security has to do with MAC addresses, it means you're going to instantly know that option B is wrong, because this is about IP addresses and port security is about MAC addresses. And option C, let's say, by instructing the switch to inspect the ARP entries passing through it in real time. Again, this has to do with dynamic ARP inspection, but even if you don't know what is the feature about you're speaking about, as long as you know that port security has to do with MAC addresses, then clearly has nothing to do with the ARP messages. Putting the port in a listening state, wrong again. When the port security violation occurs, by default the port goes into error disabling state. So there we go, I have actually excluded all of the others. Even so, in this case, even if I would have not known what a correct answer is, then just by knowing other technologies, I should have been able to end up with the correct answer, which should be A. And submit. And there we go, we got it all right.